These foods may look delicious until you find out they can kill you. Here's what not to eat if you value your life. It looks harmless, even beautiful. Thinly sliced into translucent petals arranged like a chrysanthemum on fine porcelain. But one wrong move in the kitchen, and this dinner could become your last. We're talking about fugu, the Japanese pufferfish. It's one of the most dangerous things you can put on a plate. Inside its organs, especially the liver and ovaries, is tetrodotoxin, a poison so powerful there's no cure. Not heating, not freezing, not soaking in vinegar, it stays deadly. A dose smaller than the head of a pin is enough to stop the body cold. In the worst cases, victims stay fully conscious but can't move, breathe, or call for help. That's why in Japan, only licensed chefs with years of training can legally prepare it. But even then, accidents still happen. What makes it riskier is that the toxin doesn't change the fish's taste or smell. You won't know something's wrong until it's too late. And if you think people avoid it because of that, no. Fugu is still considered a luxury dish. It's served in top restaurants across Tokyo and Osaka, and yes, it's expensive. Not because it tastes mind-blowing, but because of the thrill. Some say it's like riding a roller coaster blindfolded. You just trust the chef and hope he's had a good day. In fact, Japan's Ministry of Health keeps public records of fugu poisoning cases every year. Most of them come not from restaurants, but from people trying to cook it at home. What's even crazier, the toxin comes from the pufferfish's diet. It eats bacteria and tiny sea creatures that produce the poison. Farmed pufferfish raised in clean environments don't have the toxin at all. Yet traditionalists say that makes the experience boring. So here it is, a fish that can paralyze you just for being careless. A dish that blends danger with delicacy, and yes, people still ask for seconds. It's one of the most debated dishes in food history, monkey brains. Often surrounded by myths, rumors, and a lot of media exaggeration, this dish has a real and dangerous reputation. In certain parts of Asia, especially in the past, eating the brain of a monkey was seen as a rare delicacy, sometimes tied to ancient beliefs or elite dining circles. But beyond the controversy, there's a hidden danger science warns about, and it's in the brain tissue itself. Monkey brains may carry something called prions. These are not bacteria or viruses, they're twisted proteins that can trigger fatal brain disorders in humans. The same category of diseases that includes Kuru and Creutzfeldt-Jakob, which attack the brain and nervous system slowly and silently. Once symptoms begin, there's no turning back. Prions resist heat and traditional cooking methods, so even if the dish is served hot or processed, the risk can remain. Researchers studying past outbreaks in Papua New Guinea found a strong link between eating brain tissue and the spread of neurological disease. And while monkey brains aren't openly sold in most places today, illegal wildlife markets and underground dining experiences still pop up in some regions, often hidden from public view. Aside from health risks, there's another issue: legal. Many countries now protect primates under wildlife conservation laws, making the trade and consumption of such dishes not only dangerous but also criminal. Still, the dish lives on in urban legends, horror movies, and documentaries, often portrayed as something forbidden and extreme. But it's not just the idea that's terrifying, it's the science behind what it could do to your brain. It's bright, buttery, and served with salted codfish in one of Jamaica's most iconic dishes. But Ackee fruit, when not fully ripe, becomes something far more dangerous than delicious. The same fruit that's a source of national pride can also trigger one of the most severe food poisoning syndromes on the planet. When Ackee isn't ready to eat, it contains hypoglycin A, a toxin that stops your body from processing sugar. That leads to something called Jamaican vomiting sickness. The name sounds simple, but the effects can be brutal. Intense nausea, sudden weakness, even liver damage. In serious cases, the body's energy supply shuts down completely. Here's the rule: if the fruit hasn't opened naturally on the tree, it's not safe to eat. For generations, locals have known this. They wait for the pod to split open on its own, revealing 3 shiny black seeds and soft yellow flesh. Only the yellow part is edible, everything else is off limits. Despite these risks, Ackee is still sold in cans in markets around the world. The difference? Proper processing. The fruit is inspected, cleaned, and prepared with strict safety standards, especially for export. But in rural areas or backyard harvesting, those safety steps don't always happen. That's when accidents occur. What's surprising is how many people outside Jamaica have never heard of Ackee, let alone its dangers. It's a tropical fruit with 2 faces, nutrient-rich and tasty when treated right, but unforgiving if you ignore the rules. You might think you've tried strong cheese before. Blue cheese, camembert, even a smelly French brie. But honestly, nothing compares to Kasu Marzu, a cheese so extreme it's banned in many places. Its name literally means rotten cheese, and it earns that title the hard way, by being filled with live insect larvae. Made in Sardinia, this cheese starts out as a standard pecorino. Then, flies are allowed to lay eggs inside the wheel. The resulting maggots eat through the cheese, breaking down the fats and giving it a creamy texture most people wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. But locals consider it a delicacy. And yes, it's served with the maggots still moving. The danger comes not just from how it's made, but from what can go wrong. If the cheese isn't stored properly, harmful bacteria can multiply. And eating live larvae can carry the risk of intestinal infections if the bugs survive digestion. That's why European food safety authorities have tried to outlaw it, although it's still sold quietly through word of mouth or under the table at some Sardinian farms. Some travelers go looking for Kasu Marzu on purpose, treating it like a dare or a test of courage. Others are shocked to discover that something considered spoiled in most cultures is seen as gourmet somewhere else. One thing is certain: Kasu Marzu isn't just food, it's an experience. A soft, squirming, potentially risky one. And whether you find it fascinating or revolting, it definitely earns its spot on the list of the most dangerous foods in the world. They're shiny, red, and bursting with flavor. Blood clams are considered a luxury in parts of China, Thailand, and other coastal regions of Asia. What sets them apart from regular clams is their high hemoglobin content, which gives the inside a deep red, almost bloody appearance. That unique look is also what makes them dangerous. Blood clams are often harvested in warm, shallow waters, places where bacteria thrive. In some cases, these areas are contaminated with untreated sewage or industrial waste. Unlike other shellfish, blood clams can filter a much larger volume of water. That means they absorb not just nutrients, but also viruses and harmful microorganisms. We're talking hepatitis A, norovirus, and even typhoid-causing bacteria. What makes it worse is that blood clams are often eaten raw or barely cooked. That leaves enough time for whatever's inside to stay active. Several outbreaks over the years have traced back to street vendors or seafood buffets serving these clams without proper regulation. In fact, China banned the sale of raw blood clams in several major cities after a wave of serious illnesses. Still, the demand is there. Some people chase that briny, iron-rich taste. Others treat it as a nostalgic comfort food. But the risk? It's not worth taking lightly. Blood clams may look appetizing on the outside, but inside they could be hiding something your immune system really doesn't want to deal with. On a plate, it looks like something out of a sci-fi movie. Fresh octopus tentacles, chopped into bite-sized pieces, still moving. This is Ackee, a Korean delicacy served while the suction cups are still active. The dish is meant to showcase freshness, texture, and a bit of culinary thrill. But that thrill has a hidden danger. Even after being cut, the tentacles react to sodium and continue to twitch. The suction cups on each piece can grip onto your throat if not chewed properly. That's the biggest risk. It's not the taste, it's the texture and motion. If someone swallows too quickly or doesn't chew long enough, a live tentacle can latch onto the inside of the throat, blocking airways. Restaurants that serve Ackee usually offer chopsticks and scissors and encourage diners to take small bites. But even then, there have been reported choking incidents, mostly among tourists unfamiliar with the dish. That's why some restaurants have started offering a slightly sedated version just to play it safer. In Korean culture, Ackee is part of traditional celebrations and seafood culture. Locals know how to eat it, and they treat it with the respect it deserves. But for visitors, the danger lies in underestimating it. It's not a food you just swallow, it's one you have to battle with, one bite at a time. So it's meaty, high in protein, and often roasted whole over an open fire. In parts of Namibia, the giant bullfrog is a seasonal dish enjoyed by locals for generations. But here's the thing. Eating this amphibian at the wrong time of year can lead to serious health problems, and honestly, that's no exaggeration. The real danger lies in when the frogs are caught. See, before the mating season, giant bullfrogs contain natural toxins in their skin and organs. These chemicals help protect the frogs from predators in the wild, but, well, they can be pretty harmful to humans. If consumed too early in the season, the toxins can cause kidney problems and a condition known as oshiketakata. an illness reported in local communities that includes nausea, swelling, and in severe cases, organ stress. Traditionally, local knowledge helps reduce the risk. Frogs are usually only eaten after they've mated and come out of hibernation, when their toxin levels drop. Some families even boil the frogs multiple times and throw away the water as an extra safety measure. But not everyone follows these steps, especially during food shortages or seasonal rushes. The giant bullfrog may not look like much, but it holds a risky reputation in the regions where it's consumed. Timing and preparation mean everything. When cooked properly and in season, it's a celebrated food. But, jump the gun and you're really gambling with your health. They come steamed, boiled, or skewered, often sold in small paper cups by street vendors across South Korea. Baeondegi, silkworm pupae, are crunchy on the outside and soft in the center, with a strong, nutty flavor. For some locals, it's a nostalgic snack. For others, it's a source of protein. But behind the curious smell and the sizzling street food vibe is a risk most people don't see coming. Baeondegi contains proteins very similar to the ones found in shellfish, especially tropomyosin. And that's where the danger comes in. People who have allergic reactions to shrimp, crab, or lobster could have the same response to silkworm pupae. We're talking about itching, swelling, and in rare but serious cases, anaphylaxis. All of it triggered by a bite of something that looks totally harmless. What makes it more unpredictable is that the dish is often eaten outdoors, or casually, without much awareness of the ingredients. In recent years, doctors have documented cases of allergic reactions linked specifically to Baeondegi, leading some health agencies to warn travelers and allergy-prone individuals to be cautious. Despite the risk, Baeondegi is still widely consumed. It's high in protein, low in fat, and easy to prepare. And for people used to it, the smell, often compared to damp wood, is part of the appeal. But if you're not familiar with it, or if you've ever reacted to seafood, this tiny snack could deliver a reaction that's anything but mild. You've probably eaten cashews straight from the bag, roasted, salted, and perfectly snackable. But raw cashews in their true natural form? That's a completely different story. The nut we all know actually grows inside a hard shell that's packed with a toxic resin. It's not just irritating, it contains urushiol, the same chemical found in poison ivy. Touching the inside of that shell can cause blisters. Eating an untreated cashew straight from the tree can cause severe gastrointestinal distress, and in larger amounts, poisoning. That's why what we call raw cashews in stores aren't really raw. They've been steamed or roasted to remove the toxin before packaging. True raw cashews are considered hazardous and aren't legally sold in many countries. In places where cashew farming is common, like India, Vietnam, and parts of Africa, workers wear gloves and protective gear just to shell them. The process is labor-intensive and requires careful handling to avoid exposure to the caustic oil. It's one of the reasons cashews are more expensive than other nuts. The next time you grab a handful of cashews, remember you're eating a food that started out too dangerous to touch. It took heat, pressure, and serious precautions to make it safe. Without that, this tasty nut would never make it to your snack drawer. On the outside, Hakarl looks like any other dried meat. But take one whiff and most people instantly step back. It smells like ammonia, like a cleaning product that sat in the sun for way too long. In Iceland, it's considered a traditional food, but honestly, it's also one of the strangest and most dangerous things ever served on a plate. Hakarl is made from the Greenland shark, a creature that, while majestic in the wild, has flesh full of toxins. Fresh shark meat from this species is completely unsafe to eat. It's loaded with urea and trimethylamine oxide, compounds that can poison the kidneys and affect the nervous system. That's why Icelanders developed a very specific way to prepare it by fermenting the meat underground for weeks, then air drying it for months. This long process breaks down the harmful chemicals and, makes the meat technically edible. But the taste? It's been described as biting into rotten cheese dipped in bleach. Even celebrity chefs like Anthony Bourdain and Gordon Ramsay had a hard time swallowing it. Ramsay reportedly spit it out on camera. Still, Hakarl remains a proud part of Icelandic culture. It's often served at festivals and national holidays, typically in small cubes with toothpicks. Locals grow up with it. Visitors try it once, usually just once. But the science behind it is what makes it fascinating, a naturally toxic animal, transformed by tradition and time into something people still dare to eat. Rhubarb is one of those plants that shows up in cozy kitchen recipes, pies, jams, and sweet sauces. The stalks are tangy, crisp, and packed with flavor. But the leaves? That's where the danger lives. Unlike the stalks, rhubarb leaves contain high levels of oxalic acid, a compound that can cause serious harm if consumed in large enough amounts. Oxalic acid interferes with how the body processes calcium. It can lead to kidney problems, nausea, and more serious symptoms if too much is ingested. The thing is, the plant doesn't look threatening. The leaves are wide, bright green, and leafy, exactly what you'd expect from a harmless vegetable. That's what makes them risky, especially for those unfamiliar with the plant. Most grocery store rhubarb is sold with the leaves already removed for safety. But in backyard gardens or farmers markets, that's not always the case. It's why gardening guides and cooking blogs continue to warn people rhubarb is only safe if you stick to the stalks. Interestingly, during wartime food shortages, there were rumors that rhubarb leaves could be used like spinach. That advice didn't age well. Some people got sick after trying it. Today, the rule is clear: if it's not the stalk, don't eat it. Rhubarb may be a favorite in the kitchen, but only when you know exactly which parts belong on your plate. It's rare, heavily protected, and often traded illegally. The African tree pangolin isn't just a unique animal covered in armored scales. It's also at the center of one of the most serious health concerns in modern food history. In certain regions, pangolin meat is still consumed as part of traditional bushmeat practices. But what many don't realize is how dangerous that can be. Not just for the animal, but for humans too. Pangolins are wild animals that can carry viruses, bacteria, and parasites unfamiliar to the human immune system. When handled or consumed, especially when undercooked, those pathogens can jump species. That's called zoonotic transmission. It's how certain viruses that used to live quietly in animals find their way into humans and spread. Scientists have long warned about the risks of eating exotic wildlife. Pangolins in particular have been studied for their connection to viral outbreaks. This is one of the reasons they've become a focus of global conservation efforts. Not just because they're endangered, but because the diseases they might carry aren't fully understood yet. Despite heavy international protection laws, the black market trade still exists in some parts of Africa and Asia. Pangolin meat is sometimes considered a delicacy or status symbol. But the reality is, this eating, it doesn't just threaten an entire species. It puts public health at risk in ways we're only beginning to grasp. So, you've probably swallowed an apple seed at some point without thinking twice. Or maybe you've cracked open a cherry and noticed the hard pit inside. Most people just toss them out, or, accidentally eat them. But inside those smooth, innocent-looking seeds is a chemical called amygdalin. And, well, that's where things get serious. When amygdalin is digested, it turns into hydrogen cyanide. Yes, cyanide. The same compound known for its toxic effects on the human body. The good news is, swallowing 1 or 2 seeds isn't likely to cause harm. The hard seed shell usually passes through the body without breaking open. The danger really starts when seeds are crushed, ground, or consumed in large amounts. Crushed cherry pits or blended apple seeds can release enough cyanide to cause symptoms like dizziness, nausea, and in rare cases, more serious effects. That's why some health authorities warn against making tea or smoothies with stone fruit pits or cores. It's not a myth, it's just basic chemistry. Even so, the seeds remain inside almost every apple and cherry sold worldwide. That's because the danger depends on how they're consumed and in what quantity. For most people, they'll never be an issue, but knowing what's hiding inside these everyday fruits adds one more reason to keep them out of your blender and off your menu. They grow in forests, parks, and even backyards. Wild mushrooms may look earthy and inviting, but every year people end up in hospitals after picking the wrong ones. The problem? Many deadly mushrooms look nearly identical to edible ones. And when the difference is just a shade of color or a faint ring around the stem, guessing wrong can be a fatal mistake. One of the most dangerous species is the death cap. It resembles edible mushrooms like puffballs or straw mushrooms, but it contains amatoxins, compounds that destroy liver and kidney cells. Symptoms often take hours to show up, which means by the time someone realizes something's wrong, the toxin has already spread. And cooking doesn't help. These toxins survive high heat, so frying, boiling, or roasting them does nothing to make them safer. That's why experienced foragers use strict rules and identification methods before eating anything they find in the wild. But every year, especially during mushroom season, poison control centers around the world get flooded with emergency calls. Wild mushrooms can be a great ingredient when you know what you're doing. But to the untrained eye, they're like landmines in the woods. Beautiful, tempting, and sometimes deadly. Cassava is a lifeline crop. It feeds over 500 million people worldwide. But underneath its humble appearance lies a chemical trap. Cassava contains linamarin, a compound that can turn into hydrogen cyanide inside the human body. The good news is the root can be made safe. The bad news? It's only safe if prepared exactly the right way. There are two types of cassava, sweet and bitter. The sweet variety has lower toxin levels and is usually boiled or steamed. The bitter kind needs more attention. It must be soaked, grated, fermented, and cooked thoroughly to remove the poison. Skip a step and the consequences can be serious. In several parts of Africa and South America, outbreaks of cyanide poisoning have been linked to improperly processed cassava, especially during times of drought or food shortage when people rush the preparation process. Symptoms range from nausea to more serious effects like nerve damage or difficulty breathing. What makes cassava so unique is this double identity. It's a survival crop and a potential hazard. That's why education around how to prepare it is as essential as the crop itself. It's one of the few foods in the world that can both nourish and harm, depending entirely on how it's handled. In the waters of the Red Sea and Eastern Mediterranean swims a fish that looks small, sleek, and completely unthreatening. It's called the silver-stripe blossop, a type of pufferfish, and it's one of the most toxic fish found near Egypt's coastline. Unlike its Japanese cousin, this version isn't served in five-star restaurants. It's often caught and eaten by mistake. The danger comes from tetrodotoxin, the same powerful poison found in Japan's Fugu. A small amount can lead to numbness, paralysis, and even respiratory failure. What's worse, there's no known antidote. In Egypt, health officials have issued repeated warnings after reports of people falling seriously ill or worse after cooking and eating this fish at home. Part of the problem is misidentification. It doesn't look particularly dangerous. It has a slender shape and silver stripe, making it easy to confuse with other edible fish. But the toxin is concentrated in its liver, skin, and reproductive organs, and no amount of heat can destroy it. That's about it. Which of these dishes would you dare to try? Write in the comments. For more useful information, watch other videos.